Katera Rising by J.D. Evergreen, Chapter 20. Shattered Bonds. It takes a moment for my eyes to adjust to the light of the cavern. Although it is not as bright as a fire would have been, it is still far lighter than the dimness our eyes have been straining in as we walk through the tunnels. A towering structure looms in the distance, its chimneys vomiting thick black smoke that curls and festers against the cavern ceiling. The air here is thicker, almost tangible, each breath coated with the acrid sting of burning oil. From the chimneys, fire belches skyward, twisting in the haze like a living thing. The orange glow warps the cavern's darkness, bathing everything in a sickly, unnatural light. Even from here, I can hear the low rhythmic groan of unseen machinery churning within its depths. The whole building emits a surprising amount of light. This structure is so far away I can only make out individual parts, like the main section and the two massive chimneys. Even so, the effect this building is having on the cavern is enormous. I gape at the orange smoke. Is this what has been lighting the dim cavern for all these years? Lexa peers in between the tube-like plants around us, scanning the area for immediate danger. I direct my gaze at the large, sturdy plants. On tiptoes, I could touch the top of the tallest one. They are impressive, but still small compared to the mushrooms in Ethera. These bulbous plants are a dull, yellowy brown, and it would take two people linking hands to circle the thick trunk of just one. Sad little leaves puff from the top and reach towards the dim cavern light, wilting even as they grow. I step into a small ring of boulders that are scattered around the squat trees. Snuggled between almost all the gaps are small clusters of mushrooms. I eye them with suspicion. I crouch to run my fingers through a thick carpet of yellow-green moss. The soft plant tickles my fingers and cushions my feet. Sadly, there are only a few patches of this magnificent plant, and they grow in dark spots between the plants. Lucas approaches the nearest tree and expertly plucks a brown ball from the top of one of the plants and cracks it open with the butt of his knife.
You guys might not trust me after our last wild food encounter, but I promise these are beluga seeds. It was my job to run the machinery that refined these. Once they are cooked, the white meat inside can be eaten.
Melissa steps up to the fruit.
I have eaten these before. I am sure they are safe.
For the next half hour, the group splits up and collects a few of the beluga seeds, while Lexa and I collect wood for the fire. Most of our wood comes in the form of beluga bark. I struggle with the strike flint a few times, but on the fifth go, a spark flies off and into our pile of wood. Eagerly, Lexa and I blow at it, and the little spark catches, multiplying until flames leap about merrily. Lexa shuffles over to the moss patch I am in and sits in it. I shuffle over to make room for her. Her eyes have deep bags, and the cut on her arm has still not healed over. It is just a small green line, but I am concerned her lack of sleep has to do with how slow she is healing. Why don't you sleep? I ask her. Lexa looks at me. There is much to be done. I raise an eyebrow and nudge the woman. Much that can be done by others while you sleep. You must be wrecked by that fruit we had earlier, not to mention everything that happened before then. I don't know how you even managed to stay awake. Lexa rubs her eyes. It was not easy. I pat the soft moss beside me. Sleep. I will wake you when food is ready, or if anything happens. Lexa reluctantly lies down, her common sense warring with her need to help. Eventually, the rational part of her brain wins the battle for sleep, and Lexa curls up beside me by the fire. It takes a few moments, but her breathing evens out and sleep overcomes her. I stay and keep watch, steadily adding fuel to the fire, building it the way Lucas had shown me to get it nice and hot. I have a merry blaze by the time the others have returned with 6 fist-sized fruits. Melissa holds up a water canteen.
The trees hold water, and releasing it is as easy as a small puncture with a knife.
I smile at her. And how did you figure that out? Melissa shrugs casually.
I threw one of my knives at the tree, and water seeped out around it.
I shake my head softly and watch how Lucas sets about splitting the beluga seeds and peeling out the flesh. Nathaniel unearths a sizable flat rock from the sandy soil and inspects it. Seemingly satisfied, he brushes the slate clean with his palm and places it on the red-hot embers. I tense up. The last time we put rocks in the fire, they had exploded. I had seen for myself the damage they did to those pink dogs. Tash senses my tension.
It is okay. Only river rocks, crystals, and any sort of shiny rock explode. Standard grey, boring rocks are just fine to use.
She indicates to the rock resting on the hot embers.
In about an hour, this rock will be hot enough to cook the flesh from the beluga seeds, so we don't have to char it with a fire.
I lean forward to inspect the rock, eager to learn. So, it works like the small metal pans the guards use to cook their meat. Tash furrows her eyebrows.
I never spent a lot of time with gods. When I was imprisoned, I was a type of engineer. They don't really regard us as a high priority, and we aren't really guarded.
Nathaniel shifts uncomfortably.
Yes, it is like the metal pans the gods use, except this takes longer to heat and cool down.
I pick up a small rock from nearby and hold it up. Is this the right type of rock? Nathaniel takes my stone and inspects it. He shakes his head.
No, see the glassy line through the middle here. This rock has quartz, and it is very likely to explode in the fire.
I take the pebble back and roll it through my fingers, tracing the faint white line that runs through the center. I discard my rock and begin searching for a new one. This time I pick up 4 different stones before I choose one to show Nathaniel. The grey rock in my hand looks inconspicuous enough. It seems like just another dull rock. There doesn't seem to be anything pretty about it. So I take it over to Nathaniel and hold it out for him. He takes this one and inspects it again.
Yes, this one would work, not that it's much good. It is too small to cook food on.
I nod at him and take my rock back to my spot by the fire. Now that I know what type of stone to look for, I start to see them everywhere, and I pick up 5 more before I have taken my seat. Lucas has cracked open all the seeds and has already pulled the white flesh from 2 of them. I grab the empty husk. These would be the right size for tea. I look over at Lexa sleeping peacefully beside me. Too bad we don't have any of her metal kettles to boil the water with. I look out at the cavern around us. I haven't seen any wildlife since we left the tunnel. I don't know if that is a good or bad thing. Maybe it has something to do with how much thicker the air seems to be over here. My eyes strain into the darkness surrounding the trees. Or perhaps it is because the animals here have reason to fear us. I can't imagine the animals in Ethera have much contact with humanoid species, so they haven't been regularly hunted before. The screaming mushrooms make sure of that. But out here, who knows?
Too bad we don't have a kettle.
Tash says as she relaxes back and watches Melissa start to cook the white flesh Lucas is harvesting.
Why do you want one?
Lucas questions, using his juice-coated hand to push his glasses back up his nose.
Doesn't beluga sap from the fruiting trees make a sweet tea?
Lucas pauses for a moment.
Yes, but you have to collect it from the roots, and as you said, we have nothing to boil water in. It would just harden if you put it into cold water.
I look into the fire and the sizzling rock Melissa was working with. What about the hot rocks?
What?
Nathaniel grunts. I point at the small rocks I had collected that sit between me and the fire. What if we heated the rocks and put them in water held by these shell things? I say, holding up the empty yellow husk. Nathaniel blinks at me for a moment and everyone waits in silence.
It could work, but how would you get the hot rocks out of the fire? A rock like that will get very hot.
I deflate a little. I hadn't thought about that part. Tash is quick to step in with an idea.
What if we make wooden tongs out of beluga bark? They wouldn't last very long, but it should work to get the rocks out of the fire and into the makeshift cups.
I smile and eagerly place my rocks into the fire as Tash sets about making tongs while Nathaniel and Melissa go to collect the sap. The sizzling beluga flesh fills the air around us, and I take a deep breath of the creamy sweet scent. My stomach rumbles loudly in response, and I place my hand there to quiet it. I sit patiently as Lucas turns the meat with his knife.
It will be ready in a moment.
He declares with a small smile. I turn to Lexa and take in her relaxed face, her chestnut brown hair gently tumbling over her shoulder to pull beside the arm she is using as a pillow. It seems so unfair to wake her, but I promised. Gently, I lay my hand on her shoulder and give it a gentle squeeze. Lexa, I say in a low voice, it is time to wake up. Dinner is ready. Lexa's green eyes flutter open and she rubs them with her fists. I inspect her forearm and I'm relieved to see her marks are gone. I hold a makeshift beluga seed bowl of white meat out to her. Dinner is ready. Lexa takes the bowl and carefully sits up. She takes stock of everything around her, as if to truly ensure she had not failed the group as a leader in her sleep. I return my attention to the food in my own shell. A small white beetle crawls along the rim of my bowl and has the audacity to dip its hungry nippers into my dinner. Get your own, I mutter as I flick the insect away. I take a cautious bite, my teeth sinking into the tender, juicy flesh. A burst of smoky sweetness spreads across my tongue, followed by a subtle nuttiness. It's soft yet slightly chewy. The fruity aftertaste lingers, almost floral, leaving me craving another bite. It doesn't take me long to finish my dinner. I fill my empty seed shell with water and use Tasha's wooden tongs to extract a hot rock from the fire. As soon as it contacts the water, it hisses violently, and within minutes the water has reached a rolling boil. Carefully, I use the tongs to remove the rock and set it aside. I don't know if it is still hot, but after seeing what it did to the water, I am not going to touch it to find out. Slowly, I pour in a measure of the tree sap and stir the liquid in with the tip of my knife, and the water turns a pale red. I take a deep sniff of the fruity tea and hold the cup out for Lexa to take. The woman raises her eyebrows and sets down her empty bowl to gently take mine into her hands. Carefully, she takes a sniff and a small sip. A small smile crawls onto her face.
This is delightfully fruity.
I smile and repeat the same procedure with Lexa's bowl until I have a steaming cup of my own. I hand over the tongs to Tash, who is eager to prepare a cup for herself. I sit back and slowly sip my sweet tea. Since I have been introduced to this world of flavored drinkable liquid, I haven't been able to get enough of it, and I enjoy the freedom of having it whenever the chance arises. The warm cup helps to take the chill from my fingers. It is always so cold in the cavern, and now that I am fed and watered, my body has found something else to complain about. I tuck my knees to my chest to keep warm. The fire helps, but almost all the wood has been used for cooking, and now only a medium heat remains. Not enough to altogether remove the chill from the air. Silently, Lexa shifts closer and presses her side against mine. The warmth from her immediately works to soothe the shaking that had begun in my hands. We stay drinking and eating quietly until the fire has burned so low it no longer offers any comfort in the cold, dark cavern. Lexa rises to her feet with a stretch.
We need to keep moving. It is essential we figure out where we are and how much further it is to Arast. Those problems will not be solved sitting here.
I sigh. Lexa is right, but my body is only used to short bouts of adrenaline-rushing endurance. Arena matches lasted 3 hours at most, and then for the time after that, I was locked in a cage. My body hasn't trained to be accustomed to this almost constant long-term movement. I pull my weary muscles into action. I suppose if I don't push through this, I will always have this problem. I climb to my aching feet and do my best to stretch out my sore muscles. Lexa leads the group towards the flaming factory in the distance. I eye it with distaste. Hopefully, we don't have to go too close. Since we climbed out of the tunnel, I have been aware of the awful acidic smell of burning oil the factory seems to produce, not to mention the thickness that fills the air. I rub my head and hope this headache passes. We trudge along the uneven terrain, and I stumble around boulders and stunted plants. Everything here looks sick, even the mushrooms sag. Eventually, we come to a hard-packed dirt road that is roughly wide enough to accommodate a large wagon. Judging by the deep ruts down the middle and the large piles of animal droppings, it did so quite regularly. Lexa peers both ways down the track.
I think for now it should be safe to use the road, but should someone even suspect they hear a wagon or any creatures approaching, we should get off and retreat into the cover of trees.
Nathaniel nods.
It is wise. No free humans roam the open, and if Scarlet Guards find us, they will not show mercy.
Are there any free colonies of people? I ask, thinking of the Scarlet Guards and their families. Lexa shakes her head.
Only rebels who live in secret communities.
I dodge around a knee-high beluga tree and its withered leaves. What about the guards? Nathaniel clears his throat and replies,
Even the gods are slaves. Some may enjoy the freedom to select mates and live in houses, but even they are monitored and confined to a type of compound. Their freedom is limited to their position. They do have these holiday camps for the 2 months a year gods are off duty. These are still monitored. But there are groups of entertainers that travel through places like this.
Nathaniel finishes. I pause to consider his words. Is Erast one of these holiday camps? Lexa nods.
It is.
I swallow. So we are deliberately heading towards one of the places filled with people whose job it is to seek out and destroy rebels? Lexa grips the hilt of her sword.
I am afraid so. Our only hope is to encounter the entertainers before they arrive.
I fight back the wave of adrenaline. And the entertainers are?
Usually illegal.
Lexa quickly fills in.
They are not associated with the rebels, nor are they against them. Like Queltons, they realize they double their potential income by not choosing sides.
I bite my lip. Queltons?
Wiggle traders.
Nathaniel grumps. I fall silent as my thoughts travel to Darkmoor and his monstrous minions. They really did have complete control over the human race. I glance at the group around me. Well, almost. The dirt road is long, but travelling without having to dodge obstacles is a nice change, and if you walked along the edge, you could avoid most of the piles of animal dung. I eye a pile of excrement as I pass it. The waste easily rises to my knee and is about half as long as it is wide. It is hard to believe that animals big enough to make that pile actually exist. My nose scrunches of its own accord as we weave our way through the manure-laden road. The further we travel along the road, the brighter our surroundings become. The more uneasy I become about the growing factory in the distance. The road narrows, and on one side the trees begin to disappear until there is a sharp drop into a dark, cavernous crack beside us. Cautiously, I peer over the edge, but try as I might, I can't see the bottom. Melissa tows a rock to the edge and pushes it over. I count the seconds it takes to land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A loud clunk rings out from below us as the rock crashes against something substantial in the gaping hole beside us. Melissa raises her eyebrows and whistles.
Wow, that's a big one.
I nod. How far do you think it goes? Melissa shrugs.
It is usually around 10 meters for every second the rock falls.
I look back at the hole. I counted 6 seconds. Lexa comes to stand beside us.
That is around 60 meters.
Melissa steps back from the ledge.
That is not a hole you want to fall down.
We all back away from the edge and stay closer to the other side of the narrowing road. The cavernous gap lingers beside us for some time, a gaping, inky hole of death. Up ahead, the edge of the road that isn't a giant drop becomes a steep, unscalable cliff face. Even if we had walked in the trees, I suspect we would have been forced onto the road by this mountainous obstacle. I slow down to walk beside Lexa, who is bringing up the rear of our party. Any idea where we are? Lexa shakes her head.
I have never traveled through this place before. When I do travel to other bases, it is always through mountain passes. This is too open, and the chances of getting caught are increased drastically.
Lucas spins around suddenly and peers into the distance.
Did you guys hear that? Hear what?
Tash asks, going through a pouch attached to one of her many belts. Melissa pauses.
No, I heard it too.
I stop to listen. A definite rustling is happening deep in the trees beside us. My fight or flight instinct kicks in, and I have a deep impulse to flee. Tash cocks her head.
Animals, maybe?
Lucas wrings his hands.
Let's just hurry up and get away from here.
The group tightens up, and we make it to the part of the road with the sharp cliff face. We don't make it more than 10 steps when deep laughter rings through the semi-darkness of our surroundings. I follow the sound and look up to find two vomit-yellow creatures prying a large rock free from the wall with two long metal poles. A section of rock tumbles off the cliff face. "Look out," I bellow as I dive back to avoid the avalanche of rocks. Lexa lands in the dirt beside me. The noise as the rocks rumble past to settle in the dust on the road is almost unbearable. The violent vibrations hurt my legs and stomach. The noise ceases, and I pull my head out of my arms and look around. Dust clouds still float about, and a deep pile of rocks blocks the way between me, Lexa, and the rest of the road. I pull Lexa to her feet. A decent graze sits on her left cheek. I look at our side of the road, and I don't see anyone else from our group. I look back at the deep pile of rocks in front of me. "Are you guys okay?" I shout over the boulders. A chorus of voices calls back intelligible words. After a short pause, I take another breath to call out again, but a voice cuts me off.
Us four are still alive.
Melissa's voice shouts back.
Is Lexa with you?
Lexa beats my response. "I am here. Do you see any way over these rocks?" I reach for the next foothold, then feel it shift beneath me. The rock gives way, and suddenly I'm falling. I land hard, pain jolting through my knees as loose stones cascade around me. The world turns to chaos. Rocks splintering, the crash of falling debris, dust choking the air. A jagged stone scrapes my arm, hot pain slicing through my skin. Then, silence. I blink through the haze, my heart hammering. The rockslide is settled, leaving an impassable wall of rubble between me and the others. I look up at Lexa, who is watching me with a raised eyebrow. I give her a weak smile. "I don't think we can get over that way." I pull myself to my feet and do my best to brush off the dust and small pebbles that cling to my hair and clothing. Nathaniel's voice carries over the rocks.
"There are too many unstable rocks to climb, and shifting them would take days."
The dust settles, but the air feels wrong. A low, wet chuckle slithers through the silence. I freeze, my pulse stuttering. Movement, shape shifting between the trees. Hunched figures with elongated limbs and sharp, glinting teeth. Their skin is the color of spoiled meat, their eyes small and glistening like an animal sizing up prey. A voice, guttural and smug, growls from the darkness.
Well, well, look what we be doing, dear."
Trapped beneath the factory's eerie glow, cut off by the rock slide. And now, the hunters have found them. What happens next? New chapters release every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so don't miss what's coming next. If you enjoyed this chapter, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support keeps the journey alive. Darkness is closing in, and the real danger is just beginning. See you in the next chapter.